Have you ever wondered what happens when the bond between master and disciple is pushed to the limit? I'm not talking about simple training, but a battle where life, pride, and even the deepest emotions are put to the test. That's exactly what happened in Saint Seiya when Camus of Aquarius froze his very own disciple before everyone's stunned eyes. A scene that wasn't just a fight. It was a lesson. It was pain. It was destiny. The story begins at the heart of the 12 Houses battle, when the Bronze Saints were racing against time to save Athena. Hyoga, always scarred by the coldest Siberia and the frozen memory of his mother at the bottom of the sea, finds an obstacle no one else could imagine. His master, Camus of Aquarius, the man who taught him to master the cosmo, the art of ice, now stood before him, not as a protector, but as a judge. And think with me, what kind of master raises his hand against his own disciple? Many would say that's cruelty, but Camus saw it differently. To him, Hyoga was still chained by emotion, bound to the memory of his mother lying in her sunken ship. And a saint cannot hesitate, cannot let the heart falter before the mission. That's why the master chose the most brutal way to teach: eternal ice. The battle is a spectacle of contrasts. Hyoga, filled with pain and the love he carries inside, faces his master with courage. His attacks, his diamond dust, are filled with intensity. But Camus repels them with the calm of a frozen ocean. The absolute zero he commanded seemed untouchable, and every movement was a reminder of the gap between them. Camus wasn't just fighting, he was testing. And then, amid bursts of cosmo and shards of ice, the inevitable happens. Camus imprisons Hyoga in the freezing coffin, a crystal tomb, cold and gleaming, where no movement was possible. It wasn't just the master defeating his disciple. It was the sentence that Hyoga was not yet ready, that he needed to die there in order to be reborn, stronger. The scene cuts deep, because in Camus's eyes there was no hatred. There was determination. He believed only this way Hyoga could reach his true cosmo, and look how symbolic it is. Hyoga, the Swan Saint, trapped in an ice coffin, the perfect image of his life until that moment, frozen in the past, paralyzed by his mother's memory. Camus didn't just kill the disciple's body, he killed his chains, forcing Hyoga to face his own pain. It's at this point that Saint Seiya shows us why this saga marked generation. It wasn't only about who had the strongest attack or the shiniest claw. It was about overcoming, about how suffering and challenges shape character. Hyoga would have to be reborn from that, no longer the boy who wept before the sunken ship, but as a true saint of Athena. Advertisement in the middle of the video. And speaking of transformation, we can't ignore how the environment changes everything. After all, who hasn't struggled with extreme heat or cold when trying to focus? That SYIV got to recommend the Dyson Purifier Hot Plus Cool, a smart climate control device that not only cools but heats and even purifies the air. Imagine having Camus's calm and clarity even in the blazing summer. That's the power of mastering your environment. Back to the story. While Hyoga seemed doomed, his friends carried the pain of losing a companion, but deep down this defeat was only the spark of a new flame. When Hyoga returns later, reborn, it's as if he carries his master's spirit within him. He learned, through pain, that feelings can be strength, not weakness, that love, even frozen, can burn stronger than any ice. This scene is a milestone because it forces us to reflect. How many times in life does someone who loves us seem like our greatest enemy? How often do the hardest lessons come from those we least expect? Camus wasn't a villain. He was the master who understood that the true role of teaching is, many times, to let the disciple bleed so he can become unbreakable. And here comes the big question. Did Camus act as a hero or an executioner? Could Hyoga have been taught in another way without so much suffering? Or is it that without facing the absolute cold of death, the Swan Saint would never have found his true flame? In the end, the scene of Camus freezing Hyoga isn't just about defeat. It's about rebirth. One of those moments that show the strongest bonds aren't measured by gentleness, but by their ability to forge destinies. And you, if you were in Camus's place, would you freeze your disciple in the name of victory, or would you let your heart speak louder in the middle of battle?